Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of OTT.X webinars, where we bring you thought-provoking insights from industry-leading experts and executives from all sectors of the OTT, CTV, and streaming space. My name is Jose Rodriguez, and we're delighted to have you join us today. Today, we're very excited to be joined by Victoria Vitorelli, Head of Marketing for Video Elephant, for an exclusive look at the evolving FAST landscape, backed by fresh insights from Video Elephant's recent collaboration with HubResearch. As stakeholders in the space know, the FAST ecosystem continues to evolve pretty fast. So we're very excited to learn some primary data and practical strategies to help us navigate and thrive in this rapidly evolving environment. If you have any questions during the presentation, please drop them in the Q&A bin, and time permitting, we will get to them at the end of the presentation. Victoria, thank you so much for joining us today. I'll turn it over to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Jose. And thank you, everybody, for taking the time to tune in to this webinar. Super excited to present today. So if I'm looking up and down, it's just computer orientation and things like that. But we're going to make this a little interesting. And before I get started, or as I start switching over to the presentation, I want everybody here, we're going to try and make this a little more interactive and not just me as a talking head against numbers. So get familiar with the scrubber, or, all the things on the bottom here. If you're not already, we should be by now. But in the Q&A section, I'd love to know where everybody's tuning in from or listening from. So if you can just put in there where your location. I am in New Jersey. I'm in Madison, New Jersey. I go in and out of our New York City office for Video Elephant. So I'd love to know where everybody's listening from. I'm going to work on sharing my screen and get us ready to start while you guys do that. So let's go there. Excellent. Let me see what we've gotten here. Okay, LA, San Diego, nice. Hope everybody's doing okay. Quebec, nice. Oh, hi. Hi, Gabriel. New friends and old. So if I know you already, thank you for coming. Good to see you again. And if you're new, nice to meet you. Hey, John, I'm glad you could make it. Portsmouth, I love Portsmouth. Someone else, I guess from your team, anonymous from New Hampshire, is great. And then Ann Arbor, nice. So we've got a wide range here. I love it, love it, love it. Okay, so let's get into it. I just want to make sure if someone could comment, can you see my screen, given that I'm doing this double screen thing? Oh, and we have Miami, great.
Hey, just gonna click in here real quick. You're good to go. We could see the screen.
Awesome. Okay, so let me just get over here. All right, we're going to talk about some research that we did and some data that we found there in a study called Why Fast Matters. So let's get to it. Okay, first, let me give you a little bit about Video Elephant. Video Elephant, we empower businesses worldwide with access to one of the most extensive rights-cleared premium video collections. It's right there. And just to take your eyes to the right side of the screen, we are a video content platform. So we have been in business for over 12 years. Our legacy business is really short form distribution and licensing, working in the online video space with digital publishers. And we've expanded on that into the FAST category, which is one of the reasons we're here. Also, that means monetization, as well as we've seen an increased demand for video content on out-of-home and retail screens, making that experience that much more richer, and also with the ability to monetize that. In terms of myself, I've been with Video Elephant for a little bit over a year. I've been in marketing my entire career, working for all kinds of brands, MasterCard, the New York Jets, Univision Deportes. I launched that channel, and I've also worked in the technology space. So for me, combining technology and media is just like a dream, and super happy to be in the space and share what we've learned. So let me switch over. So again, a little bit more about Video Elephant in terms of FAST. We have 3 owned and operated channels, which you may not have known. They are Beyond Paranormal, Real Crime Uncovered, and Travel Escapes. Very fun genres. We've learned a lot as we've gone through. They were launched in 2023 and 2024. And last year, we saw a double-digit 45% average monthly increase in HOVs, which is just awesome for us, especially given that there's almost 2,000 channels out there. So, and we have a fourth channel that we're incubating and looking to launch this year called War and Military. So we're working through that. And this expertise and learning from these channels and also our years of experience in video distribution and content acquisition has really given us a leg up in the area of managing fast channels. It's a new line of business we created last year that we launched. And I think, part of that expertise that we've created or have acquired is from our channels, but also we have talent in-house. Some of you may know Priya. She heads up all of our fast operations, like everything with fast. Mehmet, who's also been in the space for a while, he's really working on the analytics and all the details behind the scenes and with our platforms. And then we have Kritika working on programming and scheduling. And then, of course, I get to work on promotions and things like that. So all of this has allowed us to bring to market some of this expertise and to share it and help other channels that are out there, because it's one thing to launch it, it's another thing to manage. So we're going to talk a little bit about that later on. So working with Hub Entertainment Research, we decided to pull the study together so that we could understand the space even more, and more so from the viewer's perspective. There's a ton of press out there as it relates to how many channels, who's merging, which this and that. We see it every day, right? In all the emails and things that we get when we read in the trades. And we also wanted to take into account that viewer's perspective. Advertising is a big part of monetizing and driving revenue for it, as well as what is driving growth and adoption of discoverability and viewership. So those are some of the broad brush topics that we will cover here today. Obviously, if you have more in-depth questions, this could go on and on for days, right? So if you have more questions, we can get into that at another time. But we loved working with Hub because they really specialize in understanding how people, and I'm sorry, that got cut off in my slide, but how they find, choose, and consume. How did I do, John? Video content from TV, movies, social media, short form. And again, they really understood what our business was about. And we felt a nice chemistry there working with them. And also they have expertise in working with lots of big players in the space, from content creators and agencies and tech companies. So that was important to us as well. So where did we get the data and what are we looking at here? So when we went to Hub and said, here's what we want to learn, and let's put it all together. They said, we talk to thousands and hundreds of thousands of people on a regular basis, and they've done tons of studies. So they helped curate a lot of the data that they already had, as well as some custom questions that we put into the study. So just for good measure, understanding who you're talking to and what is this about. They have many studies that we pulled this from that you can see here on the slide, and they continue to publish studies as well. And then we had our own questions. And this is something, this kind of a study is something we are looking at conducting on an ongoing basis, because video is our business and we know it's super important for everybody out there. So let's talk about what did we actually explore and what were the topics that we were looking at. So the four main drivers here and sort of what we found at the top: video is powerful. And this was more of an exploratory around our short form video, which I'm not going to get into today. If you want to talk about that another time, of course, you know where to find me now. But really, how video makes your content stand out, engage. Is there a potential for, short form video in a lean back experience, if you will, as we call it? So that was an area that we looked at. The next area was how the CTV and FAST ecosystem is driving advertising and monetization, and what that looks like and how people make some choices there. So we'll talk about that today. And then managing the content. It's one thing to have, we've had conversations with a lot of people. We have 500 hours, 1,000 hours on the shelf. We have this and that on the shelf. That's awesome. We love that. But then you've also got to think about refreshing that. And also we found, I'll give you a little heads up, some people like watching, we all have our old favorites that you just know. It's a very predictable experience. You want to watch an episode of Friends, you're going to laugh, you know you're going to relate to the characters. So there's a dynamic around that, and then a dynamic around you want some new stuff, right? You want to see some new things and have a new favorite. So we get into that a little bit later on. And the last bit that we explored was the power of out-of-home video. And what does that look like? And are people, you walk by billboards, you know, events and experiences are more popular than ever. So are people even paying attention to what's on the screen, whether it's in a retail environment? Retail media has really exploded, as well as just, if you're out here, there are malls with screens everywhere and all kinds of, video experiences, or at other kinds of retails like gas stations or healthcare. Do people care what they're watching? Does it matter? So we talked about that. We're not talking about that today, but I just want to mention that was one of the other things that we explored. Again, any of this we can talk about separately if it's of interest to you and your organization. Okay, so let's get into it. Why fast matters. So, what's driving a lot of fast, and I don't think any of this will be a surprise, but just validates a lot of what we've read and what we've seen, but connected TVs are really driving fast channel adoption, viewing, and awareness. Here we go. So 79% of households own a smart TV. That is up from just 2/3 in 2020. I don't know about you. On a personal note, I'm going to inject a lot of personal notes today because it's just, you see it in front of you. But on like paper garbage day, this week alone, I'm not kidding you, I saw 5 giant TVs in the trash. I don't know if people are preparing for major Super Bowl parties or just upgrading their home, getting new TVs that are more connected, but it is definitely something that I personally see out here. So a lot of people with these smart TVs. So what's happening there? They're using them to stream. No surprise. Again, they're using their TV and the apps within the TV to stream their content and what they see. So they're using those apps within as opposed to a set-top box, which again, we see this in this next slide, the growth of, if you look to the right on the bar chart, whoa, hello, sorry about that. Let's go back, here we go. Okay, if you look on the right, the light color is from 2021 and the darker green is from 2024. And you can see that the first thing that when you turn on, when you want to watch something, what do? You turn on your TV and you're looking for the apps, right? So this is the notion of when I want to watch TV, what do I do first when I turn on my TV, right? And they're going to those smart apps. And you can see that's increased a lot just in 2024. And then the other ones in terms of a set-top box, major decrease. And the streaming media player, you see an increase there as well. But it's their smart TVs or their sort of home base. Here's another thing, a different cut of the data. As we said, we pulled from a lot of different places. This sort of says the same thing, but a little bit different. The first slide is when I want to watch TV, where do I go? And this is more when I turn on my TV, what's there? And there it is. The home screen is usually that screen with the apps right there. I know in our case, it's usually the last thing that was on. And when my 2 teenagers are watching on the big screen in my house instead of their phones, YouTube is always there. But that's another presentation for another time. But that is a dynamic. So we see that a lot. Next, they're going to start their TV journey on that home screen. And you'll see here, this is a more age-based information. So when you look at the darker blue is age 16 to 34, so that younger demographic, as opposed to, say, 55 plus. They're starting the smart TV with the apps. They're used to doing that. That's how they're used to and how they were trained, if you will, or started on their phones, right? As they go into their apps, that's the behavior. So again, one of the reasons we did this study is from that viewer's perspective. So if you're building or looking at advancing your cause in the fast space, you have to think about the mindset and the behaviors of that younger demographic, because they're growing and they're used to seeing apps. And we know that there are plenty out there. So in here you can see obviously the pay TV screen for the older demographics and the antennas. Admittedly, another personal fact, we do have an antenna because we don't have cable anymore. When we have to, we watch like, I think it was the playoff games on linear TV. So there's still a place for that in some homes. So a little bit of information there on ages. And then here we go. This is back from June, but I think this is really interesting and also something that we want to track moving forward. And I'm sure John can talk about this ad nauseum, but in terms of what I would call fast curious, and I know we're not the first people to say the phrase, but you know, in terms of discoverability and being curious, like what is this app? What shows are on there? I remember when my husband and I started messing around with the different apps on our TV, we found a whole ton of Chips episodes. So for those of you who are a little bit older and remember the show Chips, we watched the pilot of Chips. And if you want a good laugh and like, oh my gosh, watch the pilot of Chips. Pretty funny and would definitely not make it today. Maybe in some circles it would, but it was funny. So that's one thing to share, that within the past 30 days, 1 in 3 have started using a new channel. So I'm sure that number will increase as word of mouth and things start happening. Okay. And how did you find out about free ad streaming service you use here? So, like we all have seen, or like my experience here, saw it on my home screen. We're like, what's that? And that was before I was immersed in the space. Also, word of mouth is huge. And then there's the notion of search, and they saw an ad and just other advertising things that are growing awareness of what's going on. I want to take a second here and do another Q&A, just so you guys don't fall asleep and me being a talking head. I'd love to know, because word of mouth is important. And I know if you're not sure what to talk about at a cocktail party or even at the next Super Bowl party, it's like, what are you watching now, right? What's a good show that you have? Everyone's always looking for recommendations. So I'm asking you, go back into the Q&A where you were before and talk about what you're watching right now and any show you'd recommend. I'd love to hear about it because it is important. We're amongst friends here. I know right now we're watching 2 shows, Red Oaks, which I think came out a long time ago, but it's on Amazon Prime. It's set in the 80s in a country club in New Jersey. So if you like 80s nostalgia and anything about New Jersey or this area, I encourage you to watch Red Oaks. It's on Amazon Prime, right? And that's another thing when we talk about recommendations and what we're watching, and I see it in here, you put the platform usually. Sometimes people don't even know what platform they're watching it on, which is another dynamic that goes on in the space that platforms and, programmers have to think about. The other show we're watching is called, I'm looking at my notes here, The Pit, which it's a little intense for me personally, but it's another doctor hospital ER setting in Pittsburgh. And it's pretty intense. Let's see what we've got here. Severance. Yep. Mr. In Between. I don't know that one. The Agency. Delicious. In Dungeon. I hope I'm saying this right. Anime on Netflix. Nice. Traders. I'm rewatching Breaking Bad. See, we have these like steadies that we like to watch, right? You just know what you're getting. It's predictable. All the Harry Potters. Yes, we have that in our house going on every once a year. We have a season of Harry Potter. Again, it's predictability, right? And you just know what you're getting. But then we also want that new thing. AP Bio. Yes, I've heard about that. Haven't watched it though, but I heard that was highly recommended. Awesome. Okay, thank you for answering. I really appreciate it. All right, let's see what else we got here. So fast content is becoming the norm. Free ad-supported TV is the norm. 2/3 have used at least one fast channel, up from 55% in 2021. So again, that now it's like multi-platform. It's not enough just to see one, but they're using different online services, which is nice to see because that's what we want. And also on this next slide, it takes a few different platforms for your content to be noticed, right? So this is just the percent of people reporting which ones they have been using. No surprise, the most popular ones are showing up here, but they do switch. So that's something else to note, and that's important to get your channel noticed if you're working on the channel, or your content if you're a content producer. This is something that surprised me personally. When I had started getting into the space, a couple of people, the notion was, oh, it's middle America. It's like people who are retired and just watching TV all day. I don't know that many people who do that, except maybe my mom, who is 84. And she's definitely not in middle America, and she doesn't watch fast. But again, that's another conversation. But here, this is what surprised me is, first of all, you've got here, and I'm looking over at my colors on my screen, sorry. The dark green is our fast users and the non-users, right? So the percent under age 35, look at fast beating out non-fast users, right, at 39%. And I'm sure that number's increased since this study was done. And then here, percent with kids in the household. I've talked to so many people who are like, oh yeah, my kids watch this and they watch that. And they know, like, little kids know. They're even more ahead of, say, my kids who were teens, but they're growing up with these fast channels, and they know where to. Tubi has their favorite show on Saturday morning or in the afternoon or whenever they need to chill and watch a little TV and get screen time. If you have littles at home, screen time needs to be limited. So this was super interesting to me. Also, let's talk about here. They come from desirable demos. So here we talk about the kids part, and then over here we've got the dark blue again, people who are watching fast. 51% watch 20 plus hours a week. It's a lot of TV. And then here, they have 3 or more streaming subscriptions. So I don't know how many subscriptions you all have. I know we've got a bunch in my home, for all kinds of reasons. When we were watching the Olympics, when we're watching some obscure sports, like whether it's cycling or squash or something else, or the league that my son's college football team is in. There's so many channels for college football. So anyway, lots of things going on here, and people have a lot of subscriptions. So again, that's great, but you want people to come back to yours, or having that discoverability. So here, going back to the number of subscriptions. So this was also interesting to me. So fast users spend at least $100 per month on their subscriptions, which is pretty easy to do. And when you look at 3+, if you're doing it without ads, it's pretty easy to get to. And then non-users obviously are spending a little bit less there. But I think there's this notion, and John, you talked about it, that there may be a ceiling, whether we acknowledge like what our maximum spend per month is going to be. But there's a bit of a ceiling that happens when you realize how much you're spending on all these different services. And at that point, we've seen some people say, okay, let me go to these other services, or let me explore. So that might really get people to explore, or get that fast curious bug going, if you will, that curiosity to look at those other platforms before they invest in another one. Or they want to, if they are in the premium tier of their subscription, maybe they go to the advertising supported level so that they can then subscribe to other ones and more to manage their monthly cost of subscriptions, if you will, because it is a lot. Okay. So let's see here. As fast platforms proliferate and the costs rise, they're substituting fast for paid platforms, which is what we just talked about, what the dynamic is. So here, have you dropped a TV subscription because you use fast? And this was a question in 2024. I think it was late 2024. I'm not sure, but and the question was, have you dropped a subscription to any TV service because you use fast services like this or this or this? And almost a third said yes. So there's something to be said there, watching the economics around these things, like people will switch out and drop those subscriptions to go to FAST. So depending, which area you play in, that's something to think about. And it's one source of revenue, which we're going to get into the advertising side of things soon. So here, again, this shouldn't surprise you, but which platforms deliver more value than others? FAST, obviously, because it's an excellent value, because about a third of respondents, that was the highest one in terms of which ones deliver value. It's free, right? So these numbers for me didn't surprise me, but I think it's interesting to see them all, relative to each other. And I'm sure we'll see that. I'm interested to see if there's a shift in any of these numbers for this year, where people land in terms of what they think that where the value is at. And a lot of that's also driven by the content, right? Like finding their new favorite show, or, I know there was a lot of disappointment when The Office or Friends shifted platforms, and it was like, wait, now I need to go get that one to watch it once in a while. So lots of different things that happen. So let's talk about advertising. And before I get into more of the details here, I want to understand from this group, again, we're amongst friends, and we have a poll that we're going to try out. So Jose, I'm looking at you now. And the question is really, and we're going to put a poll here. So we're trying some new Zoom. Here we go, new technology. Do ads bother you when you're watching TV? Do they bother you a lot? A little? You don't really care. They don't bother you at all. So take a second. Let's do a poll. Let's have a little Zoom fun here on this Tuesday afternoon or morning, wherever you are, and get you engaged on the screen and answer. I know ads don't bother me. I've been in advertising. I've worked on some really incredible campaigns. So I like seeing the creativity and really good ads. So I'm hoping that all this ad-supported TV that's out there we can get back to really creative advertising that tells stories and is beautiful and high production values. I will say I do like seeing on certain channels the timer, right? The countdown of when the ad block comes on. It tells me if it's 30 seconds or 2 minutes. And then I know what my budget of extra time is. Like, can I throw in another load of laundry? Can I go get a snack, go run to the ladies' room, or just hang tight and be entertained by a commercial, right? So I'm going to answer this as they don't bother me because I like it, but I'm very biased. So Jose, once we have all the answers in, you're going to have to let us know what the survey says. Oh, here we go. Ads bother you a lot, a third. Half say a little, and doesn't bother me at all. So I'd say like 2/3 are kind of like, yeah, a little annoying, but no big deal. So interesting. So new data point for all of us as my computer decides to do its own thing. Hang on. Here we go. Sorry about that. Okay. So let's see what the survey says here in terms of the research. How did, these thousands of participants in the research Hub did, how do they feel about it, right? So here, how do you feel about the number of ads on a show? Here, in FAST, reasonable, like they get it. Like, I'm going to see ads, not a big deal. For advertising supported, you see here, there's an increase of, it's reasonable because they know, they're like, I'm in this ad supported thing and I'm getting that value. So I don't have to pay $9 or $25 a month to not see ads. They don't bug me. I know what to do when that happens, if you will. And you can see that, just the differences of, where they think it's unreasonable, which is in cable, because there's probably a ton of ads still there. So if I was back on the buy side, not with just this data point, but a couple others that I'm going to share. I mean, FAST is important. It's a big, to me, I say this, it's an important part of your media diet, your media budget for, frequency and awareness building. And the targeting is incredible. So I could go on about that because I'm a marketer and I like specific targeting. So I'm a fan. But here, 39% of FAST users say the ad experience is better than other platforms. Only 4% say it's worse. I know I've seen it, the countdown clock to me, it's a little thing, but from a user experience standpoint, I like it. It helps me personally. And I think here people know the expectations that ads are going to be there. So people here say, yeah, 39% is better than other experiences of other ad breaks on other platforms. So interesting stuff. Here, how often do you pay attention to the ads? So it's one thing that doesn't bother them, but of course, at the end of the day, advertisers need to somehow get some ROI for what they're spending. And here, how often do you pay attention? Look at that, 29% say during, all, or most. Now, granted, this is reported data. It's not eye tracking and all those sophisticated things. And I'm going to give a plug here for good creative. Like, let's make sure that we have really great creative on air. Just plugging for ad agencies and people who are creatives, because it needs to stay well and get good. I know that's not the best way to say it, but I have strong opinions about advertising, as you can tell. So here, for people who don't use FAST, they're not really paying attention because they don't expect it. And so when they see an ad, they're probably annoyed. So just, again, different mindset, different expectations, depending on where and what they're watching. So here, let's get into why FAST needs managing. I mentioned earlier, we had a 45% average monthly HOV increase across our channels. And I'll talk a little bit about that, but it's important to have content that is curated, deep and relevant to your audience. So, the most relevant content yields a better return, as we say here. So here, 59% of viewers are more likely to pay attention to ads that are personally relevant to them. So again, it's one thing to just place your ad across the right demos and get your frequency. But if it is relevant, if it is, like we have a channel called Travel Escapes, right? And we have content in there that spans from just, landmarks and beautiful cities and countries all over the world. And we do have some cooking shows in there as well from different locations. So if you're doing a cooking show, you probably want to see ads in there that are relevant to that. Like, even if anyone still watches HGTV, it seems to always be on in certain out-of-home areas where I go. And all those ads are like Home Depot for paint, for all that stuff. And that makes sense. So can you keep it contextually relevant? And we even see that on an online basis, whether it's, a publisher's website, again, with our short form, context matters. And here, 38% are more likely to pay attention to ads that are chosen to match the type of show they're watching, which I just said. So I think that's something to really pay attention to, especially, there's like nearly 2,000 channels. Like, the way that you can tailor a plan and ads around it is amazing. It's more than we've ever seen. So that's something to think about if you're on the buy side, the creative side, pitching, wherever. So here, deep catalog of content can draw an audience. So here, this goes back to user experience and discoverability on a platform. So when you think about questions like, for each source of TV across, I think this was this the question where they watched a show? For each source of TV across the top of the grid, this is what was presented to respondents. Read down the column and check off the benefits and features you feel the source is best at, okay? So everything was on this grid. So the ones that they chose, easy to use, number one. Again, customer experience, viewer experience is everything. Older shows and movies, and then something for everyone. So again, I'm going to get into, in terms of the type of content here, of which of the following best describes the show. Was it a new show the first time, or an older show that's been on several seasons? Again, there was this notion when FAST was really getting going that, oh, it's just old shows and like syndication programming and stuff that people used to watch, and you go to FAST to watch those old shows. Sure, that's a thing. And there are certain single IP channels out there where you can watch I Love Lucy all day, every day, right? And then there's also this dynamic of, new shows, that excitement of a new show, the one you just heard about, that you might want to watch. And here we see the numbers shifting a bit, right? So from 2021, you've got 54% interested in a new show and 46 on the older show. So kind of like a 50-50 split. And here we see it change in 2023 and 24 to more of a 60-40 split. Some of that difference from 23 and 24 is just when there was the writer's strike and other strikes going on in terms of content availability. That's accounting for some of the difference here, but you can see there's more new content out there. So they're looking for that as well as that old and nostalgia. Okay, got it. Back on the previous slide. Thanks, John. There were about 16 different attributes that people could rate, and these were the ones that came to the top. So you can see there's different things in terms of having that deep catalog, depending on the makeup of your channel. And then there's something for everybody. Again, across the channels, there's certainly something for everybody, given how many there are. Okay, let's keep moving. So this goes back to the old favorites. It's a great fit. We've said this before. So you want to watch something that is predictable and is your old favorite. And I'm curious, again, I'm going to make you type on your computer here. Another Q&A. This isn't a poll this time. What are some of your old favorites? Like, what is the one you go back to? I think someone said they're watching Breaking Bad again. I'd love to hear what your old favorite shows that you go to, your go-tos when you're like, I just want to watch something before bedtime. I just got home. I want to chill, sort of like mind candy, right? Like, what can I watch that is going to just set the mood that I want to have? Office, absolutely one of my favorites, Lauren. I have The Office. I have Friends. I also have New Girl. I have never not laughed out loud with an episode of New Girl. Super funny. And then I think there's just something always funny in those shows. Sex in the City, yes. Although some of those episodes are just, I laugh because I'm like, oh my God, that was a thing. Yikes. Love Sex in the City. Big Bang Theory, yes. That is a good one. Get Smart. Yep. Office and Frasier. I love this. I don't have go-to TV shows, but I love Studio Ghibli films. I'm sorry if I said that wrong. And Howl's Moving Castle and Northern Exposure. Yes. Good answers. I love it. So it shows that we all want that old nostalgia, and there's certainly enough catalogs out there that have that for us, as well as the newer shows that you want to discover and learn about, like the Bridgertons of the world, even though that's not on Fast, but just that new exciting stuff. Like we're eagerly awaiting for season, what is it, 3 or 4? I can't keep track of The Diplomat. So if anybody's a Diplomat fan, I'm with you. We are eagerly awaiting to see if they can deliver a good, solid next season. So along with the nostalgia shows that we like. Okay. Curation and content discovery. So finding what to watch is a daily challenge. Let's be honest, there's a ton out there, and some people scroll and some people search. So here, 55% of respondents in this survey, which was about conquering content, there's 55%. There are so many shows to choose from, it's hard to know where to start, right? And that comes from you either get a recommendation, you search, or you scroll, right? So with so much content, viewers gravitate to platforms that make discovery easy. And even for our own channels, like we try to, work with the platforms on discoverability. And a lot of that you can purchase, or you can work with them if it's thematic. Like we have coming up in March, we have some really interesting programming for around St. Patrick's Day. And if you know Video Elephant well, our headquarters are in Dublin. We have a lot of Irish. And if you know Brian, who's our chief commercial officer, he's from Ireland. So a lot of Irish DNA in our company. And we have an amazing chef from Ireland. We have a show that he has where he does fish from the different areas of Ireland. I watched a YouTube of his of an Irish breakfast. So good. So he's coming out in March. And then we also have, believe it or not, I think it's on our Real Crime channel. We have crimes and stories from Ireland that have happened over the years. So even within different genres, if you can be relevant to the timing and what's going on in the world, so to speak, you have a much better chance of getting discovered on the platforms and on that interface there. So here, just, I'm more likely to choose TV sources that make it easy for me to discover those things. So it's on us to help them make it easier for them by being relevant and timely and all those things. So here, on FAST platforms, it's usually organized by theme or genre instead of, by network compared to cable. So this makes it easier for people, which again, is this migration to FAST, and we want to get more and more people there. Here, what kind of organization better aligns with the way that you think about content? So here, it shows the first choice in light blue, second choice, from a genre and category standpoint. So genre and category, about 43% there, you see prefer that. There's specific show types, and then what network are you watching, which seems to have sort of, that's the last choice. So people don't associate by network. It's more either the specific show type or really the genre that they want to see. So it depends, right? Like you want to laugh, you want to cry, you want to have some rough and tough stuff. You're going to look up genre and then think about that specific show. And then here, how it's easier to find, what they report, what respondents reported. It's easier or harder to find something you want to watch on FAST channels than other platforms. Here, again, in favor of FAST, it's easier than other platforms, 41%. So again, this is why FAST does matter, because people are responding to it. They are getting used to the interface. It is a little different than people who came from cable, and it's also different from, but more intuitive for, say, a younger audience who grew up with apps on their phone. Okay, almost through here. So let's see. Almost half the time when people sit down to watch, they don't have specific content in mind. So when you sit, this talks about the searching versus scrolling, right? Like I know, taking it out of TV for a second, when I go on Instagram, there are certain people I want to hear what they're saying, some news creators that I follow there. And at the same time, then there's times I just want to like, what's new, what's different, what's happening out in the world. So you can see here, when you sit down to watch, what percent of the time do you have something specific in mind, which is a little over half, versus what percent of the time do you use, the various methods to look for something to watch. So that's the browsing metric. So over 2/3. So you see there's this duality there of how people are finding content. I wanted to ask one more question, and I know we're coming close to time, and I'm almost done here, but I wanted to ask if, type in the chat again, if you have a favorite genre. Like I know, usually I'm telling my husband, like, I want to laugh. I don't want anything too heavy. So does anyone have a favorite genre that is their go-to? Put it in the chat, but we'll keep going. But I'd love to know if there are certain genres that you look for, like crime. When I mention to people who I meet at conferences that we have a paranormal channel, I always find somebody in the crowd that's like, really? What's it called? I have this thing with ghosts, or I want to know about paranormal activity. And it always fascinates me because it's not for me. I find it interesting, but it's not for me. But it's out there. It's a thing, right? Here you go. Horror, thrillers, and crime. Crime is huge. And it is the largest genre after news, or they're kind of neck and neck. Maybe some people think of them as the same. Not getting into anything else. It's another conversation. English murder mystery. I love the specificity there, Colin. So fun. Again, we're amongst friends. So I love seeing all this. All right, let's bring it home. So the content around ads matters. So I think this is a statement for anywhere that you're advertising. Consumers hold brands accountable for the content they advertise around. Here, 71%. Do you agree or disagree? 71% agree that the content surrounding a brand's ad is reflections of the brand values, and brands have a responsibility to publicly denounce offensive online content. And this is a tricky area. You know, gosh, again, a whole other webinar around this. But I do think there's a big opportunity right now for news organizations or anybody in the news genre to really reinstate trust. Again, I don't want to get into political comments or anything, but I think we all know, like, if you're trustworthy, if you're fact checking, if you're not sensationalizing the news from anywhere in the world, I think you have a leg up as we continue on in this year and moving forward. But it's important for brands that they hold these things, you know, accountable. And here we go. Airing ads in offensive or inappropriate content has a negative impact on consumers' perception of a brand. So again, just feelings, attitudes towards where they're seeing ads and what kind of content. So just something to be mindful of. We do want advertisers to support, you know, like we have some true crime shows that are pretty scary. Like even the promotions, I had one promotion rejected from YouTube because it was just too gory. And I'm like, it's a show, it's not a thing. But you know, you have to be careful around that and something to keep in mind because consumers, you know, viewers, I say consumers, one and the same, are sensitive to that. So here, wrapping it up, we covered those two areas of our broad brush study here, unlocking the power of FAST, that the growing CTV ecosystems fueling the demand for free, ad-supported video content, making FAST channels a key player in audience engagement and revenue generation. So we've seen that, and the data will probably continue to validate that, and I'm excited to see what we see this year. And then also managing FAST. You need to have a strategy around managing a channel. So if you're involved in managing a channel or any aspect of that, there is a lot to it. I'll give you one last quick example. On our paranormal, it's Beyond Paranormal is a channel. We put a bunch of different kinds of content on there initially, but we realized, believe it or not, the people who are watching our channel less interested in ghosts compared to paranormal activity. So when you think about Beyond Paranormal as like a genre, there's so many subgenres underneath, and that's where you can really fine tune the programming. Or maybe you notice ghosts are good around Halloween. We called October sort of the Super Bowl for our channel. But you can really get into the different programming things, look at the metrics, look at the scheduling. Maybe that's a prime time, you know, an evening thing. Maybe you air it for 3 hours so that different time zones can see it. That's where you can get really creative with programming and scheduling, and that's really important. And then your refresh rate and all those different things. And that's stuff that like we can help you with and have the expertise in-house to do that. So with that, I want to say thank you to everybody for staying on this far. And if you're watching an archived version of this webinar, thank you for getting this far, and thank you for participating in the polls. If you have questions, you can find me. I'm the head of marketing. You can find me on LinkedIn. Here's my email. Also, if you're interested in HubResearch, John, as well as Priya, who is on the line here, who heads up our Fast Managed Services. So thank you again. Thank you, Jose and OTT, for hosting us. And I hope you learned something today. Thanks, everybody.
Hey, Vicky, thank you so much for that data pack presentation. There were some great nuggets of info on fast viewer demographics and behaviors that I'm sure we can all use moving forward. I myself am personally waiting for The Office or Parks and Rec to spin out a single fast channel. I would probably make myself and a couple others take a look at our current subscriptions. And then we do have a couple follow-up questions for you. And if you do have questions at home, please drop them into the Q&A bin, and we'll see if we have some time for Vicky to get to them. But I wanted to touch base on Video Elephant has some tremendous owned and operated channels. I myself am a big fan of Travel Escapes, really sets the scene for when I'm working from home. These channels have seen some rapid growth in a short time. So what do you attribute the tremendous growth of your owned and operated channels to?
Sure. And if the team were on here, I'd have them answer even more in more detail. And I know we're short for time, but I think a lot of it is we've spent a lot of time working on the programming and working closely with our content acquisition team to say, hey, food, food in different places works well, but we really want to talk about cities and cities outside the US. Or, we really want to get into, destinations within the United States as well. So we've really worked on fine-tuning the programming, how our content acquisition team, what they're looking for, what they put asks out for, as well as the scheduling. So again, team effort. I'm all about the team effort. That's a big piece of it. And, again, just setting the stage for us in terms of our fast managed services, looking at all those different aspects of things. And then advertisers respond to that.
Absolutely. And then turning over to that fast managed service, when was it first launched and how exactly does it work?
Um, yeah, it is relatively new for Video Elephant, given that, we've been around for over 12 years. We launched it last year. Priya came on board. She's got tremendous experience in the space around launching a channel with user-generated content that was very successful, and bringing that expertise in and working closely with the various platforms. What does it take to launch a channel and what does it take to manage a channel? So she's in conversations constantly with both sides, people who want to launch, who are like, we've got hours of video and what do we do with it? How can we monetize this and get it off the shelf? To people who are like, we have this idea. We're just started in the video space with, like, we have someone who's a transportation channel, right? Or, transportation videos, and people are into transportation of all kinds. How do we launch a channel? What do we need to do to get it off the ground? So those are the kinds of conversations that we have, but we started it last year, and we may have some news this week in that space as well. So everybody stay tuned. That's all I
We'll
can
have
say.
our ears pricked up. Very exciting. And then we do have one question from Colin Dixon at Screen Media. Hey, Colin. He wants to know if you have any insights on what genres are currently underserved in FAST right now.
Ooh, such a great question. I don't know. I'm going to be brutally honest. I don't know. I think that's a great question, and I'm going to get back to you because I know between the conversations that Priya and Mehmet and our content acquisition team are having, we can figure that out. And I can give you a better answer than I don't know. But I know that as we look to launch new channels, we're always looking like what's kind of missing, and that's one of the things where War and Military came up to say, like, this is something that a lot of people are interested in. That was done through research. That was done through looking across all the platforms and what kind of programs and genres they have. So we did our own sort of internal homegrown research, and then understanding from the platforms, like what's going to sound like new news for you and different to keep people on your platform. So
Yeah,
we can get back to you with some more specifics on that.
we'll have to stay tuned and find out some more in the near future. All
Yep.
right, Vicky. Well, thank you so much for that deep dive into the fast landscape. Definitely give us some insight and perspective on how to prepare for what's ahead in 2025. As always, the session was recorded and will be available for viewing on demand on the OTT.X site and on YouTube. And please reach out to the OTT.X team if you would like to connect with Vicky or the team at Video Elephant. We'd be happy to facilitate. In the near horizon for OTT.X is a very exciting buzz session, which will take place on February 19th. In celebration of Black History Month, this buzz session will feature a panel of prominent Black and African industry leading executives who will come together to discuss the latest buzz in OTT, CTV, and streaming, as well as about their experiences as they've made their way successfully in the streaming business. It's going to be a great session. It's going to be moderated by Michael Smith, Chief Marketing Officer for NPR, and featured panelist Linwood Bibbins, CEO for Reach TV, Terry City, Senior VP of Advertising Sales for Cineverse, Aaliyah Daniels, Co-founder and Chief Operating Officer for Reverie, and Stephen Hodge, Chairman and CEO for Otera, as well as Michael Johnson, Director of Operations for Electric Now. It's a great lineup, totally free. To learn more, sign up and visit us at OTTX.org/buzz. And then in the next couple months, OTT.X will be hosting roundtable discussions for its members in late March and be present at the NAB show in early April. More details to come shortly, so please stay tuned. We thank you all for joining us again today. Vicky, thank you so much for a tremendous
Thank you.
presentation. Look forward to working together this year and wishing you all the best. Have a great day.
Thanks again. Thanks, everybody. Bye.